If you're about to experience some extreme weather conditions, you need to make sure you have an emergency kit ready for your dog in case anything happens, in case the power goes out for a prolonged period of time, in case there's damage to your house and you have to leave, in case there's an emergency that is so bad you are required to leave the area that you are in. You need to be ready to go. So when it comes to preparing for these storms, we need to do this in advance. So you want to make sure that you are thinking ahead of the obstacles that you might encounter as you are moving forward with whatever weather conditions are known to your area. So think wisely, make a list, and get all these things ready in an emergency pack that you can either just pull out if you need, or that you can grab and go to your car if you need to leave. Now, we have done a video on evacuations, so make sure you are checking that out to make sure you have what you need if you need to leave an area, and get your dog prepared to go so that you have what you're going to need to survive in that situation. If you are preparing for this storm to stay at home or potentially leave if you have to, the first thing that you need to be mindful of is food and water. You need to make sure you have enough food and water for your dog to sustain them for a prolonged period of time. If your power goes out and then stays out for a week or 2 weeks, you need to make sure you have enough to survive. Now, of course, when it comes to these storms, the storm probably will not last a full week or 2 weeks. You'll probably have the ability to go out and get things if you need them, but still be mindful that you have these things ready to go in advance and stay ahead on your food and your water. Have water bottles in case you are not able to use the water that you have access to, and make sure that you have enough to facilitate what you're going to need for your dog. If you are going to have an emergency kit to run out the door, I do recommend that you are taking measured dog food and putting it in different Ziploc bags, putting it in a container, and then having it ready to go. I do recommend having a week's worth of that food ready. And then what you can do is, if you have it prepared in advance, that you just leave it there every once in a while, use the emergency food and then replace it. If you are just aware that the storm is coming and you're preparing right now, I would do a week's worth of food. Make sure you have that individually packaged, because if you need to leave, if you need to get yourself somewhere, you do not want to be fiddling with how much food to give them for dinner once you arrive. You want to make sure that you have that prepackaged and ready to go. We've done videos on that, especially for traveling. It applies to this as well. So have that food and water ready to go. Additionally, you need to make sure you have an emergency first aid kit. Now, I've done full videos on this. I will link those down below for a more cohesive idea of what you're going to need. But highlight reel includes things like bandages, things to stop bleeding. You want to make sure you have hydrogen peroxide and a baby syringe, because if your dog swallows something that's toxic to them, hydrogen peroxide gets squirted in the appropriate level for your dog's size. Google that, and then that will help to regurgitate those things. And you want to make sure you have what you're going to need in terms of their medications or anything that might pop up in terms of a need for doggy Benadryl, all of those things. Be mindful and have those ready to go in your first aid kit that you can either open up when needed or take on the road as you need to run. You also want to make sure you have your vet records. Keep those on your phone. Keep the digital vet records on your phone. If you can have a printed version with your emergency kit, that's going to be helpful as well in case anybody else needs that. But knowing what your dog is allergic to, when their last vaccinations were, all of those things are going to be incredibly valuable, especially if after a storm or during a storm, you need to then leave your home to have with you, so that you know exactly what you need to do in order to care for your dog or to answer questions if people have them. Related, you also want to make sure you have printed instructions and digital instructions for how to care for your dog should something happen to you. Let's say you are in the middle of a storm and you get injured and you are now removed from your dog. Somebody else needs to be able to care for that dog. If you do not have a person that is also co-raising that dog with you that is available to do that, you need to be able to clearly communicate that very simply. So handing them a piece of paper or airdropping them that digital instruction so that your neighbor, your family member, or the very kind humans that are helping you to take care of your dog while you are incapacitated from taking care of your dog, you need to be able to give that to them very quickly and easily. So the same instructions you would leave for a dog sitter, those are the instructions you're giving to those people. So have that ready to go in case you need to disseminate that information. I also recommend having small treats on hand in case you need to communicate with your dog quickly and get them to take action faster than normal. Even if your dog is very good at listening to your commands, you want to make sure that in an emergency situation where you might be speaking quickly or higher pitched, or you're nervous, or you're giving off an energy that's kind of killing the vibe in the room, you need to make sure your dog is able to take action quickly. So whatever motivates them, and for a lot of dogs that's going to be treats, have those on hand to get them to move fast. If it's a toy, if it's something else, have that there as well. because in the heat of the moment, in the situation that you're in, things might not work the way you plan. And if you need to get something done fast and accomplished quickly, have a motivator there. Of course, you also want to make sure that you have blankets and towels and things to keep your dog warm, things to allow your dog to sleep on. If you're going to be in your own home, they've got their own beds. But if you are going to be taking them anywhere, if they're going to be in the vehicle, if they're going to a different location, you need to make sure that they have somewhere to sleep that is nice and cozy, but is not going to take up a ton of room. Blankets and towels roll up very quickly. They're very easy to shove into the crevices of your car if you are packing to get out. You want to make sure that you've got something that is going to keep them warm if the power goes out. So having those things extra ready to go and just waiting for you to use if needed is going to be very valuable to you. Relatedly, you want to make sure that you have something to contain your dog with. If there is a situation where there's a lot of loud noises and a lot of things going on and things are happening inside of the house, you need to make sure they're in a safe place. If you can have a crate, if you can have a pup tent, if you can have an area of the house that you have just walled off with a little gate, having them in a condensed space helps them to feel safe and secure. You know where they are and they're not going to get underfoot if there's an emergency situation. If the storm is coming and it knocks out your window, you want to make sure that you know where your dog is and that they're not going to get injured while things are happening. So having a safe, contained space, the smaller the better in this situation, honestly, is going to work to your benefit. Have something there. And when it comes to storms and staying in your home, you do want to make sure you're distracting your dog as much as possible. So I do recommend having a sound machine that you can turn up to kind of counterbalance the storm around you. If you can turn your TV volume up, if you can play music a little bit louder than normal, this is going to help you. I've done videos on this before. I will link them down below. We're not going to get too deep into it in this video, but I do recommend counterbalancing the noise happening outside and putting that sound source between your dog and the window that they can hear that thing through. Because if you put it in the middle of your home, they're still getting the noise from outside in addition to the noise that you're creating. So if you can block some of that, that is going to help dramatically. You want to make sure that they are not able to hear it. And if you can build up their awareness of the storm before it happens, it's going to be less scary. We've talked about this in other videos. Real quickly, if you know a storm is coming, turn on a storm video on your TV on YouTube very quietly and then build it up until that storm arrives so that it's not all of a sudden scary noises. If you help them to not worry about that as much and build them up to it, that is going to help. So I'll link that video down below for you. You also want to make sure you have distractions for your dogs that they can participate in. So I do recommend getting lick mats and freezing them before these storms, if at all possible, so that it gives them something to do. That means they are going to be eating some yummy food. It's going to be distracting. Lick mats are enrichment for dogs, but it's also, if they're frozen, going to take them a longer period of time. And if they're busy with their lick mats, they're also creating this noise bubble around themselves to distract them from the storm and prevent them from hearing some of it. So lick mats throughout the course of the storm, very, very helpful to you. You also want toys and activities that are a bit novel for your dog. So have some new toys for them to play with. Get out your ball pit and put little pieces of their dog food in there so that they can go on a scavenger hunt while that's happening and the balls crashing into each other. Also helps to distract from that storm. Have something that they don't do every day, be it new toys or toys that you only pull out on special occasions, so that they're interested, so that they're engaged, so that they're excited about these things, and it helps to cause a distraction during the storm. Now again, if you are evacuating during the storm, I have a full video on the things that you need to take with you, but being prepared for these loud storms, these big storms, these storms that are a bit more prolonged than just a normal thunderstorm that you would have for an afternoon, is going to help to level up your success for navigating that with your dogs. And if you have more than one dog, you need to make sure you have attention for each of them. You're spending time touching them and talking them through it and really helping them to process what's going on, and making sure that you're prepared and ready to go if you need to is the most important thing that you can be doing in situations, especially if you know they are coming, and especially if you don't know they're coming, that you have things ready to go, you have a plan in place, and you are prepared so that it's not going to be as overwhelming, as scary, as traumatizing to you or your dog when these storms come up. Drop your questions down below and follow along for daily videos helping you navigate the world of dog parenthood to help level up for your pup so that you can live the most stress-free life possible with your dog and give them the best life possible. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.